So I want to give a little bit of time to explain each of the assessments that I use. So the quizzes are assigned every Wednesday at the beginning of class. And as I said, I have 10 quizzes, which are aligned with the course learning objectives. I have a table of the 10 topics for each quiz. And again, we have about 16 weeks in the semester. So students will have some weeks in which there is no new quiz, and they can just retake previous quizzes. And students, I'm using a mastery learning approach. So students are able to progress to a subsequent quiz only after passing all the previous quizzes. So an example, they can take quiz 4 only if they have passed quiz 1, 2, and 3. Again, because every topic builds on each other. And I had noticed in the past that without these roadblocks, students would try to solve advanced problems and still missing some of the basic elements. In order to pass the class and get a C, I mentioned in the grade bundle that students need to pass 7 quizzes, and these 7 quizzes are aligned with what I call the essential topic. So to be able to pass my class, students need to know well all the first 7 topics or course learning objectives. And only the more advanced students will have a thorough understanding of the next 3 topics. So the basic principle on that is that I prefer students to know the 7 introductory topics really well, than just have a superficial knowledge of everything. That is usually not very helpful in subsequent classes. And each quiz is evaluated with a predefined rubric that I provide to the students. The problems in each topic are usually very similar to each other. There are usually maybe 3 or 4 types of problems, and we solve them in class with an active learning strategy. And in class, I provide, in my lecture notes, I provide the students with the rubric that I then use to grade them when I grade their assessment, their quizzes. Students do not have the rubric while they're solving their quiz, so they need to remember what the steps for the quiz are. So this is my schedule this semester. So I've on the left, you can see the week number and the quiz and when each quiz is offered. So for example, on week 6, I gave for the first time quiz 3, but whoever had not passed quiz 1 and quiz 2, instead of taking quiz 3, took either quiz 1 or 2, depending on where they were. And I have to say that this past week, which was week 9, I gave 4 different quizzes because I have students that were still on quiz 2, 3, 4, and then the new quiz 5. So it takes a little bit of preparation because you have to always have multiple assessments, but these are quick assessments. Quizzes take the students about 15-20 minutes, and I found it to be doable over time. I mark with an arrow the more challenging topic. So quiz 2 is moments, and students have a lot of challenges with that. This week I gave the 6th retake for that quiz, and I still had a couple of students that are not proficient in that moment. And then I expect quiz 8, based on my previous experiences, to be also a challenging topic. And I plan to offer an additional retake opportunity around week 12 or week 13 on a Monday or during office hours. So this is an example of a quiz. I gave the student the problem, geometry, the task that they need to give. This is my solution, just for my sake. And then I created a rubric that you can see here on the table. And in this case, there are 8 criteria. For each of them, I mark whether student meet expectation or need revision. And then based on how many of these criteria they passed, I mark the assessment, the quiz either meet expectation, so passed, or needs revision, which is failed. You see that some of the criteria have a capital E, and those are what I call essential criteria. Those are the main new topics, new aspects for that quiz. And students need to pass all the essential topics. So even if they pass 7 out of 8 criteria, but they do not pass the first one, for example, the quiz will need to be retaken. And again, students have these rubrics beforehand, so they can use them to practice. In this case, I set my scale that students need to meet 6 out of 8 criteria to be able to pass this quiz. I talked about weekly homework and lab experiences. So the homework are, again, a weekly assignment, and they are submitted online through Canvas. I create a long rubric that comprises all the problems in the homework, and based on the number of criteria that they pass, they either get a meets expectation or revisions needed for the homework. Students are not allowed to retake the homework because, again, they can get a plus grade even if they do not pass all the homework themselves. So there is a little bit of room for them to leave some homework behind. And for the labs, we have 3 hands-on experiences in the second half of the semester. There are 2 groups of 2 students, depending on the numbering. And then, again, the lab report has to be submitted a week after the hands-on experience. And we have a predefined rubric for the homework, for the report as well. And they will either meet expectation or need to revise. And each report will be possible to retake once each of the lab report. And the constraints in the number of retakes for the homework and labs, it's mainly due to the grading, the amount of grading that needs to happen. In the final exam, students, I'm gonna grade the students on a 3-scale grading. So they will either meet expectation, which is the satisfactory category. They can be excellent, or they can not pass the final exam with having a revision needed graded. And to obtain a meets expectations grade, I will focus the problems only on the essential topics, because that's what I expect the students to know well to pass the class. And to get an excellent, there will be topics or problems also from the supplementary topics. In terms of creating rubrics, I generally create them myself, but I've tried also this in-class activity in which I asked students to help me create a rubric. I did it a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted students to be involved in deciding how to grade themselves. So what I did is that I solved one problem, the first problem for that topic, and then I asked the student to divide themselves in groups of 3 with the neighbors students, and ask them to come up with the rubric. And students came up with all the criteria themselves, and then we discussed as a class how to define each criteria, which one were the essential criteria and which were not essential, how many errors I was going to allow to pass each criteria, and how many criteria they needed to pass to meet expectation in the quiz. I was kind of skeptical, I would say, at the beginning. I had heard about these activities to have students participate in setting up their grade. And I was convinced that students were going to be very, that they would basically pass anyone. Instead, I found students to be stricter than I was. And it was a very engaging process for them to think about all the steps involved in a problem, in writing them down and agreeing with their group members on what was important, how many errors they were allowed. I did not find to be lenient or forgiving at all. And they were all engaged. They loved these activities. They said that was probably the best class ever in the semester. And there was a lot of participation in creating the rubric and having the discussion, and with me asking them detail and say, so how do I need to grade this aspect? Give me the number of errors. And they felt empowered, and I didn't see a large difference in what I would have done myself. So I really encourage anyone who might be thinking about including students in defining their grading system to try it out. This is a plot of how things are going so far in terms of passing quizzes. This was what the state that was the situation on Tuesday. So I had given 4 quizzes up to that point, and I marked how many students pass each retake. I have 35 students in the class. So you can see that after 5 retakes, everybody had passed quiz 1. And after 5 retakes, quiz 2, which is one of the most challenging topics, had basically, I still have 5 students that need to pass that topic. Something that has been very helpful is in tracking students' progress in the class. By week 5, even without giving a midterm, I perfectly knew which one were the students who were struggling. And so I was able to have conversations with them and trying to understand how to support them with maybe some, encourage them to come to office hours, give some extra problems. So it has been very helpful in not leaving students behind and knowing exactly what's going on in the class. And what I've noticed is that once students pass quiz 2, then they very quickly pass quiz 3 and quiz 4 because they had mastered the main concepts that they needed. The additional aspects that they were adding were not the most difficult, the most challenging aspects of the quizzes. And so they were very comfortable with that. I just gave quiz 5 this week, and I was just finishing up the grading before this seminar, and students did very well. So I can see that once they pass the quiz 2, which is very hard for them, and quiz 3 is also very fundamental, then they understand how things go in, and the quizzes were really good quizzes to be the new topics. I also wanted to show you how I use the Gradebook to help me track the students' progress. So this is what I have a traditional gradebook in Canvas, but I have also the option of tracking how students are passing each quiz. And so you see here, this is, there is a column for each quiz that I've created in Canvas as an outcome. And so in my rubric, I always add whether the student has passed the quiz, so the outcome or not. And Canvas allows me to track the situation of the class and look at it at a glance. So in this case, if we take the second student, we see that this student has passed the quiz 1, and Canvas doesn't tell me how many retakes. I can trace it back, but I don't have that information here. But this student has passed quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, and there is no information about quiz 4 because he has not taken it yet. If I look at this student here at the bottom, I can see that he has passed quiz 1 and that he has attempted quiz 2, but he has not mastered it yet. And he still needs to master to try quiz 3 and take quiz 4 as well. So it is very helpful to have an immediate view of how things are going, and students have access to their own record for this.